Hello and welcome to another episode of Daily Market Mastery with me, Christian Rauchenwald, on this weird Wednesday. It was raining, now it's sunny, maybe it's raining later again. I hope you all had a great week so far. As always, in Daily Market Mastery, we're going to take a look at my portfolio and I'm going to try to forecast the movement in certain stocks and indices. Before we do that, however, let's get the usual disclaimer out of the way first. Everything that I share in this live stream / video is obviously my personal opinion and in no way financial or professional advice of any kind. You should always do your own research, consult certified professionals, draw your own conclusions, and make your own decisions. Besides that, all the tools that I'm using, so the broker, the charting software, and everything else, like the strategy I'm following, is linked in the description down below, so you can check it out for yourself. And the one thing I actually recommend, if you haven't done so, is to check out the Elliott Wave principle. You can read it online for free if you use the link down below, or order yourself a physical copy if you want to do that. Now, with that, I think we can jump right into it. We have a red start into the day. We see that some of our shares are a little bit in the red, more than before, or less than before actually. I think GWeb lost a handful of dollars. I added another 100 shares yesterday. Remains to be seen if the company manages a turnaround. We're gonna look at the chart in a second, and also at the borrowing fees, so how much people have to pay for shorting the stock. SunPower recovered a little bit from the crash that it had recently, although we are still down. So we used to be down a little bit more, and now we're down a little bit less. And the other stocks are moving a little bit sideways, so not much changed with the rest. GameStop we're also going to look at as usual. So yeah, I think we're going to start by actually taking a look at the short interest data, or not short interest, but at least the stock yield enhancement program. That's how Interactive Broker calls it. So when you opt in to be willing to lend out your shares and therefore get paid for it. So we're going to look at the data from the 22nd and compare it with the data from the 23rd. So we see the change. So on the 22nd, if we scroll through the activities report, we see that only Greenwave and COS were lent out. Greenwave we had yesterday 300 shares, and as said, now we have 400, but out of those 300, we had 234 lent out with a net fee rate of 59.82%, which means that those users on Interactive Broker that actively shorted the stock actually agreed to pay 120% in yearly interest on those borrowed shares. In comparison to that, yesterday, let's check how the interest rate developed. Yesterday, where do we have it? Stock yield enhancement program. So yesterday then, let's see, 10% less of our shares were borrowed, but the interest rate remained almost unchanged. So still expensive to short, which means, at least how I interpret it, that basically either there is not a lot of people willing to give away their shares, which I don't think so, because most people don't make the conscious decision to either opt in or opt out of share lending, or more likely, in my opinion, it's still being heavily shorted. Now, if we look at the chart for Greenwave, it's still relatively stable. So we move between 150, right now 149, and 188. So I think we're still relatively stable. It's not to say that it cannot drop further, but considering the insane short interest that we already had through the entire period here, I think there is the potential for, I'm not saying a short squeeze, but at least some upward movement, considering how expensive it is to stay short in that stock. Greenwave, as said, I mentioned it again in this stream as well. I don't have any pattern, any Elliott wave pattern, any other kind of pattern that would suggest, okay, we'll see that spike. I solely have my money in there because I like the, what's the English word for it? The business venture that Greenwave does, which is recycling metals. And I like the fact that despite the huge short interest, or not short interest, but despite the high borrowing fees, which indicate that a lot of shares are being sold short, the price is relatively stable. That can change at any moment. We saw it here. It can go in quite quick. But yeah, so that's why we have that position now. Additionally, yesterday we had COS, which has 142% interest rate per year for borrowing shares. And out of our 100 shares, 80 were borrowed. And yesterday that changed to 88 borrowed and 120%. So the interest rate dropped a little bit, which means more shares are available for shorting, which means somebody might have returned some of their shares. Now, if we look at the chart for COS, we don't see a lot of movement. We're on a daily chart. So yesterday, actually, it gapped up and closed down. And today it looks like we have a little bit of upward movement. It remains to be seen if we still have a wave C to come here, or if that was already our correction. And this here is the next 1, 2, and we get wave 3 from here. Wave 3 from here. We're just going to hold the shares. We're going to enjoy the extra earnings that we receive. Although, I mean, it's not a fortune. I mean, that's obviously, those are analyzed interest rates. So they are not for the day. So it's not 100% per day, obviously, but 100% or 120% per year. And out of that, we would earn 60%. But yeah. Another stock, SunPower, we see that we hold 200 shares, I guess, exactly. Yes, and all 200 got borrowed yesterday at an interest rate of 22.42%. Not as high as for the other stocks, but considering that it wasn't shorted before, or at least not from our stocks, nothing was borrowed. And now it is also not such a bad sign. They recovered a little bit from their price dump after the announcement that they will stop deliveries and other stuff for the power walls and other products that they have. Remains to be seen how it develops. Either it crashes down from here, or we actually eventually finally, or the company actually manages to turn around. Yeah, so considering the low price of right now $1 and before that around $2, so I think it's for me personally something where I can have a couple $100 invested as a, in quotes, pure gamble. I like in general, I like solar tech. We also have our solar panels, even though it's a rented apartment here and still have panels on the balcony. I like that stuff, and I think it has potential. The question obviously is, will the company be able to turn around, become profitable, pay off debt, blah, 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 and so on. Yeah, we see markets are open. There is a little bit of movement. Looks like it's going to be, or at least starting like a green day. At least for SPWR. And with that, we can, I think, move on, because like those are all the stocks that we see that are currently lent out. Now, but with that, I think, as usual, we'll first look into GameStop, where we are unchanged, waiting for a breakout from that trend channel here. So basically to really give us the confirmation that the corrective wave down here is done. Until that happens, we just have to wait. Yeah. So obviously, depending on where we put that trend line, I think that would work, or that is in my opinion, most conservative trend line variation. So depending on where we put that, we actually already broke out, or we are still waiting for the breakout. Yeah. Alternatively, or for the downside, we could now add this one here. Wrong button. So there. So to give us a kind of like a triangle pattern of either we break out here to the top, or we eventually break the bottom here. Either way, the true point of where we would only start if we break below 22.31. But with GameStop, I'm honestly not even worried about that, because I think that if we were to go towards 20 again, or even below 20, it would just be temporary and not a permanent measure, considering the financial statement of GameStop. Unlike Greenwave and SunPower, which are not so profitable companies with huge debt. GameStop, as you know, is debt free, has $4 billion on their balance sheet, or like mostly debt free, just with one small loan, blah blah blah. And yeah, in my opinion, a bright future ahead. So we'll see how that turns out. But again, until then, we can just wait. I know it would be nice to always have a super accurate pattern to follow, but especially the corrective patterns can be a pain in the ass to label, because they have a lot of flexibility. That, by the way, briefly brings me to, if you are looking into Elliott Wave Theory, you can also find this gem linked in the description down below. It's one A4 page that you can print out if you want to, that has all wave patterns, including their guidelines and rules and their probabilities in one page. It requires you to already understand Elliott Wave Theory to be able to understand that one-page cheat sheet, but it saves a lot of time in terms of looking into the book and reading or rereading certain parts all the time, because everything is nicely there. Now with that, let's switch back. And yeah, I think for the other stuff, there's not going to be much to do. We can check on Chewy, actually. That's something. There we have actually same situation like in GameStop. Either that is already the correction, or that's only wave A, we get wave B, we get wave C, so further down movement still, and then potential further movement up. Barnes & Noble Educational today in the green. Again, we are basically, I mean, we were waiting for the breakout from here, which we got. And so there is a decent chance that from here we move up further, but we don't have a horse in that race, so it's not that it matters much to me. That candle here after the split, so that fluke candle here is a little bit of a problem with the labeling. If we ignore that and assume it's a fluke that should be here, then we could assume that this might be wave 1, 2, and from here we go up. Just to clarify, Barnes & Noble Education Inc. is not the same as the bookstore, so yeah. Anyway, what else do we have? CrowdStrike, they're still moving up and down, as we can see. I still think that there will be further downward movement, and we're just seeing basically wave 1, 2, maybe that's 3, 4, 5, and we get ABC, and then the next down push, or that's only 1, 2, 3. Now we get 4, and then we get wave 5, then we get ABC, and then we get a further push down. Remains to be seen. Both is possible, but I'm still, bearish on them. I'm sure they will lose a lot of customers and probably face a lot of lawsuits for damages and loss of revenue and whatnot. And I don't think they have a very, very bright midterm future ahead. What else do we have that I want to check out today? Immersion, how are we moving here? Looks like we have the variant that I mentioned yesterday as well, that this might be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get the push for wave 5, in which case this here, if it's like that, we would expect the area of 1484 to 1730, if that's indeed the case, as our final target. However, we will only have, in quotes, a confirmation if we go about 1407. Until that point, it's still possible that this will be ABC, and we first go down to 1081, and then our wave 5 would basically change like this, and it's then possible that we're not having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that we're actually looking at a bigger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Yeah, so that's something to consider. Cost we already checked out. Nvidia, where are you going? As said, like as expected. It didn't reach as far as no, actually it went perfectly. So it really went how I've mentioned it. I think 2 days ago we talked about Nvidia, and it was about that this likely is ABC, and that it should not reach the 125.2, and that from here we might now get wave 5 down. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and wave 5, and wave 5 should bring us down to 110 at least. So there's still like 1%, no, actually 10% drop coming. So to 110. Doesn't have to go in one way today, but that will also play out as basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down to 110, which will then finish either only this A, B, C, or it will turn into a bigger downward trend, and this will only be 1, 2, 3, and then obviously would go lower than 110. Yeah? It's gonna be interesting to keep an eye on that. Sadly, or actually I'm fine with it, but like if we would have available capital, I would have bought puts here in that area. The way it is, we'll just get to watch, or I just get to watch, and others get to trade it, but that's okay, as long as our portfolio also goes in the right direction. Now, SPY, probably going to do the same thing. Yeah, we bounced on the 50% retracement, so question is just if that will be A, B, C. We already went below the 547, so what I would expect here now is basically that this will be indeed wave A, wave B, and we're now in wave C, with the minimum target being at 546. And if we zoom out a little bit, the actual target at 539. So there's still a little bit room for everything to go down here. There's also a third target further down below, but for now, let's say 540 would be the target for the downward movement, which again should play out as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in between, there will also again be an upward movement, just like we had it here or here. Yeah, so question is, I mean, the time frame is the big question. It doesn't have to go as fast as here. It could also drag out a little bit if we get a corrective pattern that takes a couple of days. So I wouldn't buy 0 DTE options, but I'd probably aim for early August, mid of August options if I were to trade that. But again, right now our capital is anyway committed. And now with that, actually, yeah, so we have our GameStop calls that expire next week. That will bring us, what was it, 44 times, yeah, roughly like that. So a little bit more than $220 in options premium for 11 days of trading. So a little bit more than 1% return for 11 days. By far not our best option trade, but still basically for just holding the shares, extra income, which further reduces our average share price. I mean, not visibly here, but overall. So actually right now, based on the premiums we earned so far, one could say we got the 500 shares at, we got the 500 shares at $30, and we so far earned almost 8,000 in premium. So actually our average is around 14 for those shares if we consider all the premium. Yeah, although we got 600 shares to be fair, so the math is a little bit different. So it's 18,000 for 600 shares minus 8,000, yeah, for in premium that we got divided by 600. So our average is around 16.66. So definitely not too bad. But it would mean if we sell it below 30 that we actually give back some of the option premium that we earned previously, and I'm not willing to do that, especially not since I'm long-term bullish on the stock. Surprisingly enough, I know with GameStop, there's always the, there's going to be the mother of all short squeezes and so on. But one has to consider then, if that's the case, why out of my 500 shares that I hold in this account, none of them are getting borrowed. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not shorted at all, but it is surprising that other stocks, like I said, Greenwave, SunPower, COS are getting borrowed, and GameStop has like 0 shares borrowed already for a couple of days. And even before, only a fraction of shares were borrowed, and then with an interest rate of like 0 point something %, which does not point towards a lot of shorting activity. Now, there are obviously a lot of other ways to short a stock, yeah, but at least the direct way of borrowing the stock, yeah, to short it, there seems to be not that much action going on. Yeah, and I think with that, we're done for today. There are no questions in the chat, no stocks to look at. So, yeah, so we'll have to, or not we have to, but we're going to call it a day here because I still have a bunch of other things on my to-do list. If there would be some miraculously explosive movement in GameStop or another stock that I'm invested in, I might come online later to get today again. Other than that, we'll have another live stream tomorrow around 5 minutes before market open as usual. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this live stream and were able to take something away from it. Again, if you want me to look at certain stocks, indices, or other assets, as long as I have a data feed for it, just mention it in the chat next time I'm live. And with that, have a great rest of the day. See you in one of my other live streams. And till then, bye-bye.